So I work at UCLH, which has a very big haematology centre. In fact, we all work in very big haematology centres. And we have a number of different consultants trying to understand vaccine responses. So, and by vaccine response, what we really mean to say is we're trying to understand how well patients with blood cancer who either have a diagnosis of blood cancer or who are currently receiving treatment for a blood cancer, how well their immune system can respond to the vaccine, and whether their immune responses to the vaccine are anywhere near the same, both in size and in quality, to that which has been observed in healthy volunteers who formed all of the trials that allowed the vaccines to be licensed and used in the general population. So we've got a number of groups of people at UCH who are getting together patients who are going through the vaccination process, and we're collecting blood samples before and after their vaccine to see if we can measure their antibody responses, but also importantly measure their T cell responses. So the T cells are cells that can expand in the bloodstream and actively kill normal cells in your body that are the home for the virus when the virus infects you. And the immune system relies on both these antibodies and the T cells to eradicate the virus. And so we're trying to understand that in groups of patients who have lymphoma, particularly B cell lymphomas, and also patients who've had CAR T cells for either lymphoma or leukemia. And then a couple of my colleagues at UCH are looking in patients with myeloma and with patients with acute myeloid leukemia.
We obviously are concerned in terms of the blood cancers and blood diseases are such a wide variety of different conditions, and it may not be the same for all blood cancer patients. So I think the Blood Cancer UK vaccine task force is very important to draw everything together, as you said. And so we're doing work looking at, first of all, are patients on immune suppression for bone marrow failure, so PNH and aplastic anemia, collecting samples before and after vaccinations, both the first and the second vaccination, to look at serology, so the antibody response and T cell response. Also within the CLL patients, we have large trials on patients on treatment for CLL, either previously or currently on treatment. And I think as these types of therapies target the immune system, it wouldn't be a surprise if the response to vaccines was reduced as well. And it's how we optimize that. So we're testing patients within the trials in a study run through Birmingham. And also one of my colleagues is leading the myeloma, similar work in a myeloma arm of that study. I think the other thing to talk about is we need to get rapid answers, because all our patients have been vaccinated very close together quickly, and they need to know how they respond. But also, it's that basic knowledge which will allow us to, first of all, advise patients the best way to behave now, but also how can we optimize the responses going forward, because we need to build on the lack of knowledge in which groups of patients really need better strategies to get responses to vaccines.
We know that people with blood cancers have an immune system which is not normal, and especially the treatments that we use for lymphoma are designed at affecting lymphocytes, the cells of the immune system. So it's no surprise at all that many of the treatments we use for helping people to recover from lymphoma also suppress the function of their immune system. And we've seen during the last year, unfortunately, that people with blood cancers in general and lymphomas and myelomas in particular seem to be very susceptible to coronavirus infection. And if they catch coronavirus, then a much higher proportion of people get very ill. And unfortunately, quite a few have died as a result of the infection over the last year. So we are very keen to find out as quickly as possible, number one, how effective the vaccine might be in people with lymphoma, particularly people who are just embarking on or going through or have recently finished treatment, and to know how much protection they can get from that. And of course, that's incredibly important for people planning their lives. So the huge success of the vaccine program has meant that we've had to get this research started very, very quickly. And we particularly wanted to measure immunity before people had the vaccine as well as after, so as to be able to make a really clear comparison of the two. So my colleague Sian Lim in Southampton has set up a study which is going to run in half a dozen different centres across the UK where people with lymphoma are being treated in large numbers. And we will ask them to give us blood samples before they're vaccinated at all, after 1 dose of vaccine and after 2 doses of vaccine. And some people we won't manage to catch them before they're vaccinated because almost everybody has been now, but we've got quite a lot of people. It's about 80 people that we managed to have blood from before the vaccine program really got underway. So we'll have something to compare with. And the plan is to recruit several hundred people who've had the vaccination, and that'll allow us to look at the responses in the antibodies and in the T cells, very importantly, as Emma says, compare the different vaccines, and in some respects also compare what the different illnesses do, because we think that some types of lymphoma may have a more profound effect on the immune system than others, and we need to know if that's reflected in the way that people's bodies respond to the vaccine. And really what this is about allowing people to have some sense of how protected they're likely to be by the vaccine, and also whether, for example, if we need to revaccinate people as new variants of the coronavirus emerge as the year goes on, how effective we can expect booster vaccination strategies to be as well. So very important to get this information systematically as quickly as possible, so that we can give people advice about how well the vaccine is likely to work in their particular circumstances, and look to the future and planning of strategies, because we think the coronavirus is going to be around for some time yet.